Welcome to the Open Air Podcast. My name is Devang and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Simon Bushel. Bush, how's it going? It's sunny where you are. It's sunny where I am. Could spring be just around the corner?
This always happens every year, doesn't it? You get the mirage on the horizon in the oasis, if you will. You see the pool in the middle of the oasis and you're like, we're there. Spring has come, only to be hit by one more snowstorm. This is what is life living in Canada. But let's enjoy it for the time being.
100% true. And I regret saying what I just said because I have definitely invited a massive snowstorm to afflict us all in Canada. But no, it looks quite nice outside as we're speaking about Indian Wells, Bush, a place that is looking more and more like somewhere I've got to get to at some point to watch some tennis. How much have you watched so far of the early round stuff?
I've watched absolutely nothing, Devang. Other than
incredible.
Actually, I shouldn't say absolutely nothing. I watched a little bit of Andy Murray play, but my real diving into it will be come this weekend when I think we start to get into it properly in earnest.
You're right. And I was talking like I had watched hours of matches this week and I wanted to big up you, but I can't even say that. I watched the same thing you did. I watched Andy against David Goffin, and I watched a bit of Clara Dawson in qualifiers on Tuesday. So yeah, I haven't watched a lot, but it should be exciting. I think the biggest news though that we will get to right now is Simona Halep. And the fact that Simona Halep has been cleared for an immediate return to tennis after the sport's highest court accepted she was not entirely at fault for her positive doping test. The Court of Arbitration for Sport said its judges partially upheld Halep's appeal and reduced her 4-year ban to just 9 months. It was applied retroactively and expired last July. The 3 judges decided Halep, quote, established on the balance of probabilities, unquote, her positive test for a banned blood boosting substance, quote, entered her body through the consumption of a contaminated supplement, unquote. So, Bush, this is a bombshell because CAS or CAS normally does not hand down judgments like this when it comes to doping in sport.
Yeah, this is a farce, is it not? I think.
You know, when Sharapova super fans were in Dimensions being like, is this for real? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, they got a point here. They got a point.
So I think you can have your own opinion about about her guilt or the initial report that came out. I think I have been certainly on the record. And like the only thing I have to go on is what the report said and the balance of probability about that. And clearly I thought that there was very little chance that the substance, like the way that it entered her body, like could have been through no fault of her own. It certainly felt like she was guilty of this charge. That's my opinion on it. I don't think that changes after this report. All that being said, how can anyone have faith in this system? I think that's kind of where I net out on this as an overall story, which is that every side feels like they have been aggrieved in some capacity. It just looks like a complete farce from top to bottom, Dev. And it looks like that no one can actually have any trust in this system moving forward.
So I think John Wertheim has pointed out that this kind of follows a pattern of initially big bans being handed down by various tennis agencies or federations and then them being slashed on appeal by CIS. I think the reason that people were a bit surprised by this, even if that is the case, is because in terms of like track and field and in terms of cases where there is such well-documented allegations and the report, if you read the initial report, doesn't really beat around the bush in terms of what it's alleging. I think that is why people were quite stunned by this and why people are quite confused, I think, because like I think CAS is going to release their full report and that should be revelatory, but I just don't understand how, and I think this is something that Gary Nathan alludes to in this piece in The Defector on this. I don't get how they can have such two widely different conclusions off the same information.
Totally.
And that goes back to what you're saying about how can you really have faith in the system. I thought the reactions by people was really interesting. Like I totally like Darren Cahill's been in Simona Halep's corner the whole time, but it feels like the way tennis moves forward from this, as like the tennis people, is like, all right, Patrick Mouratoglou and his crew have a reputation to repair because everyone is seeming to place the blame on them, which is interesting if you think about it, because now I think Halep is coming back almost as this aggrieved figure who didn't deserve this, which I don't know is true.
There's a decent amount to unpack in this story, isn't there, and how to best tackle it? Not least against the backdrop of fucking Peter Thiel and the doping games that are going on shortly. You been following that story, by the way, Dev? It's quite a funny one.
I have not. I've not.
Not familiar with that one? I encourage you to look it up after the show. So, yes, I think we have more so mentioned on this podcast that it was a terrible look on Patrick Mouratoglou and everyone, I think, associated with his camp in that regard. I think this does help certainly vindicate in the eyes of many, and I think there are those who will still, I think, rightfully feel that there's been some hand waving here. On the point of having to wait for the report, I think that's where I'm really netting out on this whole story, which is that I'm utterly and completely confused. I'm just so shocked, I guess, that first report being so conclusive in terms of its position and in terms of how clear this looked, and then to come out on the opposite side of it. And like the reasoning behind even the biological passport stuff, which was kind of like on Halep's word. Like I really genuinely want to look at when this report comes out to understand how there could be such a 180 from what the first initial report was.
She's got a wild card in Miami, so she's coming back, baby. She'll be back soon. It's really incredible. I don't know. I felt like everyone was really confident after the initial ruling came down. And I mean, Luke on the Discord went through it and he's like, this is a Halep DOA. Like, she's not coming back from this, but it is, I don't know how you feel. I feel like Billie Jean King's like, well done. Like, this is great. Like, people are really happy to see her back that are within the game. So is this possibly a case of tennis doing a shitty job policing itself in terms of how they do like doping testing? Or is it also the idea that tennis is like picking the wrong battles here? Because it does feel like the elephant in the room is that there is some level of boosting going around somewhere, right? So who are we really going after, I guess? And with Simona Halep, the person.
I mean, we said this when the first news broke about it, that if you don't believe that there is some level of doping or performance enhancement drugs being taken within the sport of tennis, that is an incredibly naive position. And I think that's also true across the wider sporting world as well. People dope. There are people injecting substances. This is not the old days of injecting a syringe and, direct steroids to you. Like, things have moved on significantly. There has been a great deal of progress that's been made in how to prevent people from tracking you when it comes to taking performance enhancing drugs or any kind of stimulant which helps your oxygen levels, any of these sort of things. So it's always an arms race. And I think for those of us who watched Icarus and sort of followed that story in its entirety with the Russian Olympic athletes as well, none of this is particularly shocking in sport and will continue to be this way until it's no longer having the, I guess, massive financial returns that the sport does have. And even then, I think even removed from it, any level of competition, I think, opens itself up to some level of cheating. It's almost inevitable. I guess it's about what you do with it. So the concluding thing on this is just, huh?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
This is bonkers.
There's a piece by Matthew Futterman in The Athletic that is quite pro Halep, actually, if you want to go check it out. But he quotes Howard Jacobs, her lawyer, Howard Jacobs, who has been involved with defending athletes involved in doping cases for a couple decades. So he's well versed in this. But he he was saying like he had never seen something like this, and like the tennis integrity agency, the ITIA, really like effed this up, and they were making allegations without proof. And this is just as I mean, if you wanted to hear the other side, I guess, and see what someone in the pro Halep camp is arguing, I think this is an article to check out, because yeah, I'm also confused as hell, and she's going to be back soon, and it's going to be hilarious because discourse, the discourse will be just toxic and terrible when it needs to be, right? It'll be brought up at times.
I mean, there is a point I think also to be made on this one, which is Simon Halep is a nice person, I think by all accounts, and someone who is very liked within the sport. And I think us sort of taking the position that we have on this one is purely based on what was presented to us, like in terms of the material which was available to us. It's nothing against the character of the person. And I think you kind of have to leave the character of the person at one side when it comes to evaluating and putting a judgment call down on whether or not they're putting foreign substances into their body, or they're trying to confiscate the truth on these things. And what you have to do is kind of dissect the evidence which is presented to you. In that case, it sure looked like she was guilty, and this ruling is just throwing many confusion layers to everyone in terms of how it's not been the case.
This quote in that Futterman article from Jacobs, quote, "The ITIA is a relatively new organization. They should be more interested in catching real cheaters rather than people who make a mistake." In that same article, Futterman mentions that a lot of players are reaching out to Halep who are concerned because they too take a lot of supplements, and that they too, this could happen to them. The PTPA head as well was quoted saying, "This is no one wins after this because of the time Simona has lost." And I think what's interesting, he also says he met with leaders of the ITIA who said they placed some blame on the World Anti-Doping Agency who set up the controls.
But how can you read that first initial report and come to the conclusion that she was innocent? Like, I think that's the funny thing. You're just going off gut and emotion at that point, as opposed to anything else. Like, it's pure parasocial stuff, which is really a bit icky, honestly.
It could happen to me. This wild stuff I'm taking could be exposed, I guess. I don't know. Okay. Shall we get to Rafa now or take a break, Bush? What do you think?
Ola Atoros did indeed make an appearance, did it not, this week? Let's take a break.
You know, the worst part is that's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, fucking Bush doing that accent too. It's gonna haunt my dreams. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk Rafa and we'll hit party shots as well. Welcome back to the Open Air Podcast. Just to add to the confusion of the Halep story during the break, Simon and I both reiterating we have no idea what's going on. maybe this is a hashtag Free Simona real campaign, and we've been duped.
I don't know. I feel like we should timestamp this when we're recording on March the 7th and say, once I read that report, I could look like a fucking moron, and I'm happy to come back on and say that, oh no, she was definitely screwed here. But like, maybe that is the case. Who knows?
They did give her legal fees back as well, and that's I don't know if that matters at all, but yeah, okay.
Multi-millionaire.
20,000 francs. Okay. Rafael Nadal, Bush, I want to point out, first of all, we completely neglected to talk about this Netflix slam that happened, that I don't even recall knowing about it at all. And I'm not even joking. Did you know it was happening?
I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. It was bizarre that it sort of, how does two people who watch as much tennis as we do completely miss this?
No, that's why I'm like, that's not for us at all. That's really not for us.
Especially with the two players, especially Rafael Nadal as well. Like the idea that he's coming back and just no.
So his first match in ages, the husk of Rafa, how's he going to look? Yeah. So I didn't know that was happening, and that's maybe shame on us more than marketing and etc. But we had some support in the Discord, and it wasn't apparently much of a show, though. What people did see, I guess, was Rafa not looking so hot, Bush, in that exhibition, and it led to a lot of talk about whether or not he was actually going to play in Indian Wells. He was scheduled to play Milos Raonic in the first round, which would have been a wonderful blast from the past for this old man. God, take me back to my youth with that matchup. But it wasn't meant to be. We got it, Simon. We got the cursed words that Rafa usually utters when bad news is coming. I actually don't even know if he used it this time. I think he didn't. That's how serious it is now. But he has pulled out. Quote, "It is with great sadness that I have to withdraw from this amazing tournament. Everyone knows how much I love this place and how much I love to play here at Indian Wells. That's also one of the reasons why I came very early to the desert to practice and to try to get ready." He also loves golf, so that's why he came early. I don't know if Rafa dropped that in there as well, but he was amped for this, man. He was really amped for this. I think they're giving refunds for the people that got tickets for that round-ish Rafa match, which is nice, but this is looking like Fed's end, looking familiar to us. I don't really know if we want to prognosticate like how wrecked is he or like will he come back, but does feel like we're running out of runway here. Like if this is about gearing up for the French Open and the Olympics, like how much time does he really have?
Well, judging from watching that Netflix slam, he sure as shit doesn't look like he's going to come back and be ready for the clay court season. Again, we could be massively wrong about this, but watching the player that played in that didn't look like he was the same person or moving with the same level of fluidity. Does kind of remind you of the Federer-Sampras stuff, doesn't it? And obviously, like there's parallels being drawn with that of person at the back end of their career and young gun at the start of their career in this matchup. You said something in his quote. Do you think he actually likes Indian Wells? Do you think he actually enjoys going there?
I think so. Well, I think he's best friends with Larry Ellison. So He gets to do whatever the F he wants, which is play golf for like the entire day. So I think he does like it. And also no one bothers him.
I mean, it looks like he's done, doesn't it? We joke about this all the time on the podcast, and he's going to come back with 2 bionic legs and all that kind of stuff.
It never made sense to me that he would come back for this hardcourt stuff. Right? Like if you're going to give it a go, you give it a go on the dirt and you only play on that. And you let your body get ready for that, and you let your body re-feel what it means to push it to the limit that's required. I know getting reps is important, but like at this point in the game, I wasn't sure what was to gain here. And maybe even for him, it's like, let's do this Netflix thing. And then because I did that, I should probably try to play Indian Wells. Otherwise it'll look quite bad. So let's see where I'm at. Okay. I'm not feeling great. I actually kind of question if I can hold up over 3 sets against some of these guys. So I'm going to wait a bit longer. And I think that makes the most sense, and it gives him the best chance. Whether or not that means he's going to win anything or achieve his goals, I think I'm still pretty skeptical about that. But I can kind of justify what's happened by maybe using that logic, maybe that it was like a testing ground. You do this Netflix thing, kind of tell Larry you're coming and to play golf and give it a go. But then in the end say, I'm going to get ready for the clay.
Totally, yeah. It sounds perfectly logical to me when you phrase it like that. Let me ask you a question though, Dev. Like, I know we didn't touch on it last week. Do you read anything into this Netflix slam? Like the fact that it's on Netflix and all that sort of stuff against the backdrop of the WWE deal?
This Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, is that on Netflix too?
I believe it is, yes.
I think so. Yeah. It's the play, right? This is the play. This is the last place you can actually make money. It feels like live events, live sports. Mm-hmm. They cancel everything else because it's all about growth, baby, to get back to that. But yeah, live sports is the last cash cow left, and every massive company seems to be going in on it. Yeah, I think this is a thing. I mean, I think it's why I didn't hear about it. So
I don't know what that says about us.
That's the other part. That's the other part. Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling increasingly alienated from society and the world. I'm going to go watch Dude 2 later, so I feel like that'll be more my speed. Right? That's an uplifting story.
I don't know what that says about us either.
The fact that Nadal was replaced by Nagal, though, that was okay with me. That was like, I don't know if that was a tip of the cap by the organizers, but that was.
I love it. That's just how it should be. Every tournament moving forward.
Nagal's on standby. He's like, honestly, this is terrible for my schedule, but it's worth it. Okay, so yeah, we're recording this a bit before the main draw really gets going, but the Nadal news is obviously huge, and we'll talk about what's gone on in California next week. So unless you have anything else, Bush, on Rafa, maybe we get to parting shots.
Yeah, let's go to parting shots. I will say that someone that I play doubles with is down in Indian Wells next week, so I'll get a report from that person and see how it goes. And I'm curious to hear.
I think Pugu Panda from the Discord is down there.
Amazing.
Too. I saw, and they shared a screenshot of the PIF branding, which was near instantaneous. Fantastic stuff. But yeah, shouts to P Panda, friend of the show at Indian Wells. We got to get down there. God, everything is so expensive and money is horrible, but something about Tennis Paradise speaks to me. Let's get to parting shots though, Simon. Andy Murray, we both saw this and put this in different ways into our notes, which I find interesting. But Andy Murray on Tennis Channel, he beats Goffin. He's talking about whatever, shooting the shit. And they asked him about, I guess, like what it was like on tour for him as a youngster and how are the other guys like. And he kind of mentioned how some guys were pricks to him, some guys were jerks, but then some guys were really nice and took him under his wing. He mentioned Jonas Bjorkman, who ended up being his coach for a bit. He was nice. Tim Henman was really nice, which I thought was nice for Tim, someone to come up and take your spot as a fellow Brit, not being a dick, I think speaks really highly of T Hen. Andre Agassi, also boys. I guess they have that connection as well with Brad Gilbert, of course, but Andre Agassi was nice to him. But then he says that 2 or 3 guys were not nice to him at all, and he didn't mention them. But going back in time and looking at some of the quotes, are you ready to guess who might have been a dick to Andy Murray at the time?
Well, to give a shout out to Belgian Bond on the tennis subreddit who did the investigation work here, I'll give you a list of names. Okay, here we go. Leighton Hewitt.
Yes.
Andy Roddick.
Yes.
Marat Safin.
Yes.
Carlos Moya.
Yeah.
Roger Federer.
Yeah, I think Roger really didn't like him at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
He talked shit about his game so much at the beginning. It was off-putting.
That's the first person I thought about when I heard this quote. I was like, yeah, 100%.
And I can see if Roger's not nice to you, it's the opposite of class. What is it? Goonery, treachery? I don't know.
Also on the list, Juan Carlos Ferrero.
I don't know. I think Roddick could have just been perceived as American, which is usually a stamp against you before you really get into it. So I don't know. I watching like the Marty Fish doc with Andy. I didn't feel like he was that bad of a dude off the court. I could be wrong.
I love how we're completely going into after complaining about parasocial relationships in the first segment.
Exactly.
Trying to do it here
20 years ago. Yeah, and trying to examine them from 20 years ago. This is a great use of time.
Hang on, I got 4 more for you just to close it out. Importantly, 4 more. Yeah. David Nalbandian.
Yes.
James Blake.
Who is a bad guy. Yeah.
Fernando Gonzalez. Hierma Cordia.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different world. We was the go-go aughts. We had less time for bullshit. I don't know.
Out of that list, the ones that stuck out to me, definitely Hewitt.
Yeah.
Definitely Federer. Definitely Nalbandian. Definitely Safin.
And in the defense, this young Scottish teen was kicking ass and yelling at people, including his own family in the stands. He was his own guy. So I could see how it could be abrasive maybe. But no, I did find that answer illuminating, Bush, because I mean those dynamics obviously still factor in today.
I do think people tend to forget how much of a prick he was on court, him being Andy Murray when he first came onto the tour.
Time.
He was awful to watch. Like he was
big time.
You could understand why he would rub people the wrong way, especially in terms of public and on the tour as well. So not particularly surprising, but at the same time, try and be nice to people unless they give you a reason to not be.
Speaking of Andrey Rublev, we talked about the incident in Dubai, but he's at Indian Wells. Going to play Andy by the time you listen to this. That has happened, but he did an interview with Russian television or a Russian program in Russian, but with subtitles. I saw it on Tennis Reddit as well. But thought it was really good, Simon. Like, I mean, it clearly sounds like this it got through to him how much this broke through and how embarrassing this was and how remorseful he was. At least that's what I gathered as well. Once again, examining how this man feels through video.
I didn't actually see this, Dev.
I'll link it for you.
Yeah, I was more curious about the fallout from some of the other voices that came out on this one. I feel very confident in saying this, Dev, that not universal, but like a large amount of support towards Rublev coming out of this. It feels like he is being sort of painted as the victim in this, as opposed to like perhaps being abusive on court towards someone who is in their workplace.
I mean, the quote that's, and this is the headline, is like, "I am to blame," is disrespectful. So of course I feel guilty for it. And I think the person doing the interview is like part of his PR team, kind of. So take that for what it is. Yeah, I mean, a bit Halep-esque, you could argue.
I did see Jimmy Connors interviewed on this one, which of course, make of that what you will, but I will quote Jimmy Connors here. Yeah, what's wrong with getting heated? What's wrong with that? You're putting everything you have into what you're doing, which is trying to win a tennis match against an opponent who's trying to kick your ass at the same time. What's wrong with feeling that and understanding that and wanting more from yourself and understanding you're out there breaking your ass and trying to give everything that you have? Breaking your ass? Bizarre quote.
F yeah.
So all of that is true. But don't fucking, abuse a lines judge.
No, you know what? Break out your T2000 and get to your local court. Because it's time to respect Jimmy Connors. Because that's the damn truth. Respect.
Look, I think...
Where is the lie? Where is the lie, Bush?
I think you can be passionate. I think you can be fiery. I think you can be all of these things. I also don't think that you can abuse an umpire or a lines judge.
Okay, sure. I mean, sure. You don't want to be 1 millimeter from someone's face screaming profanities at them and their family. Maybe. But I guess.
I think there's such a lack of understanding of that point, right? And I think maybe more perhaps speaks to the exceptionalism that some players feel when they are on court. That the fact that everyone is there to see them and everyone else should bow down to them on court at that time. And I think this Connors quote made me think of that immediately, which is they don't see umpires and they don't see lines judges as real people on court. They see them more as an extension of this performance, which is focused on an individual player or a pair of players. And I think when you look at it through that prism and through that lens, of course that you should yell at these people because they are only there to serve me.
It's well said.
Or is that too harsh?
WTA tournament at
We can row that back. Nah, let's not row it back. I've committed to it now.
I thought it was good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yes, the Queen's Club. There's actually pretty big news, is it not? The Queen's Club, notorious for not allowing women to practice, not obviously having a tournament. Actually, be shocked if you're allowed within the vicinity of the postcode of Queen's Club. But all that being said, for the first time since 1973, there are plans that still need to be approved. It's not been confirmed yet, but there are plans that a WTA tournament will be taking place after the French Open from 2025. This throws the rest of the grass court season for the women completely in the fucking blender in terms of what's going to happen.
I love when stuff like this happens. Like, you know what? We're going to do it, guys, without any sort of care for the rest of the tournaments. So good.
Eastbourne, we know you've done so well to get up to 500 status, but, fuck off now.
Get out of our way. Get out of our way, or we will shove you.
Yes. So that is part of it. Eastbourne potentially is downgraded to a 250 event. No real word yet on what that does for Nottingham either, or Birmingham. Birmingham, of course, it's been a pretty big tournament in the grass court season. In terms of what this means with the two tours sharing Queen's Club, this also came out during the course of the week of whether or not of who does this benefit more. Like it sucks from both sides of things, and the fact that you have this limited surface of what it can hold up for two tournaments back to back. So the women get it when it's incredibly slippy and first laid down, and then the men get it when it's all being beaten up. So I don't think anyone's happy in that regard from playing on that surface. At the same time, I'm kind of okay with this, but I don't put that much stock in the Queen's Club. Like, I don't really, like, I'm clearly not someone that rates the history of it or is particularly enamored with the history of that tournament. So I was not someone who is beating the drum of trying to get a WTA event there. I kind of am in more favor of trying to make other tournaments more significant, but why not? Sure. Equality comes in many forms, and I'll take it here if we want to look at it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read that Russell Fuller piece on the BBC about it and how this was undertaken after a long review, and how the powers that be recognized they probably need to add rather than take away for the grass court season. But yeah, they need Cinch on board, that car company, that used car company. They need the partners on board. Sounds like they will make the tickets lower priced. Yeah.
Bring back Stella Artois. That's what I say.
Yeah. I am getting less pleased with the demoing other tours for other events idea that seems to have kind of relegated some of our favorites into the lesser than tournament category. It's happening at a faster rate than I care for, and it's going to keep doing that. But I guess that's the growth, baby.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's interesting as well. We've talked so much on the topic of the legitimacy and what at tour level, so the governance bodies of the WTA, the ATP, the ITF, the four slams, and how convoluted that process is and how challenging it is, I think, to get any level of uniformity or shared ideas across the line. Throw into that also like national governance level as well, of trying to get the LTA to all agree on which tournaments and how it should all be funded, and then trying to get that in line with the WTA and the more broader topics that go on within tennis. What an absolute mess of a situation, Devang. Just a complete... It's the kind of thing that I'm happy to not be involved in.
I'm noticing a lot of the sports in general are running into these... Basically, they're scheduling too much stuff, and it's coming at a cost of the athletes themselves. And they're jamming so many things into these calendars that the product is not benefiting from it. So that's good stuff. Speaking of that, though, I wonder if there's a correlation here at all, or some sort of link between Ballgate, which continues now. Bush, I saw Andy Roddick talking about this, and now John Millman.
When Ballgate... we first started talking about Ballgate, it definitely felt like Tobias in Arrested Development and the Never Nudes. Like, there's literally dozens of us talking about this. The numbers have grown since then, though, Andy Roddick and John Millman, as you mentioned. So we'll read both tweets in this. So, quote, Roddick have gotten 2 texts from 2 of the top coaches on Earth in the last hour. On Earth? Goodness me, that is a qualifier.
On Earth? I love thanks, though. I mean, I've heard Zoltron has got some wicked lines up there.
Fuck me, those Decepticons. Surprisingly good at tennis. Continuing, saying how bad the balls are at Indian Wells. Apparently, this was after a handful of minutes of a warm-up. How has this problem not been fixed over time? It is the subject of his podcast last week. We will not, of course, shout that out. Publicly traded podcast and all that stuff. And John Millman, quote, treating in response, a targeted effort over time to slow down play. Court speeds are too slow. Too much sand in the mix, making them so gritty. No balls stand up on these slow, roughed up sandpaper courts. Hashtag stop the count. Hashtag fix. Hashtag Ballgate. He didn't really do the hashtags.
He did not. Millmania, though. Listen, a targeted effort, strong words. And now that he's retired, he can speak his mind like this.
Do you think we could trump up some of this language in the Millman tweet? A targeted effort by the woke left-wing ATP to slow down court speeds. Oh, man.
Is the idea that, because there's no doubt in my mind this is happening, and like the ball stuff is effed, and I don't get it. But is this the idea that they want longer matches because that's good for drama?
I don't know. That must be the case, surely. That seems like the most logical idea. Or parity, I guess.
Or that like rallies were too quick because people don't have, like, people can't get engorged by 3-shot rally.
Gorged. I love it. Excellent.
I'm running out of words here, man. But I think this though is like, imagine the NHL, every stadium had like different pucks. Or like they used different balls for each NBA stadium. It'd be really weird and not right. So I don't understand how this is happening.
It is funny that it's one thing that I really do have a strong opinion on, which is that if you're gonna continue to have home court or home team or home stadium, then you should be allowed to set the parameters of how big your court is, like bigger or smaller.
Or what? Yeah, or like use the shittiest
absolutely
found in the back.
Like I think it should have parameters, right? Like within.
This is the sport we have to build.
So let's say within 10%, you give a. I just think that would be such a fun idea. So maybe I'm wrong in my perception on this.
The technology will allow this soon, and we'll get bush ball into play. We'll get bush ball going.
It has to be to negate serves and negate the increases in technology. Exactly. That's what it has to be.
They had to let Isner and Karlovic get out of here, and then this gets started. Okay, 2 challenges remaining. Bush, what do you got this week?
My 2 challenges remaining is to add to the call for and the pleading for there just to be a fucking general election in the United Kingdom. Like, please, honest to God, can we just get this over and done with? Like, I'm so ready.
Did you see Ice-T just destroy Keir Starmer with a quote tweet?
I did. It was very funny.
Exactly what I needed.
I love it.
It was great.
The nation needs to be ridded and restarted. And despite my hatred of the entirety of what the Labour Party has become, I kind of just want things to move on so that we can get on to hating them and trying to change that party as opposed to hating the one that's currently in power, which sounds ridiculous on the surface of it, but goodness me. This has special meaning to me. I left the United Kingdom in 2011, so I will have been gone for the entirety of the time that the Tory party has currently been in power, which is kind of funny. So I'm desperately looking forward to them not being there anymore.
I back it. I watched Oppenheimer finally this week. Bush, enjoyed it. Cillian Murphy guy, I like him. But I don't know. Have you seen it?
I have seen it, yeah.
I had a couple laugh out loud moments when I saw Albert Einstein appear in sweats. I don't know about you, but I thought they were laugh out loud moments that really, really added some lightheartedness to it.
I agree. Excellent. I also think the casting of Matt Damon in that film is comically miscast. Like comically miscast. When he appears on screen, he looks like a theater actor turning up with like a fucking plastic mustache. It's ridiculous.
That's Matt Damon, man. And I like how they made Casey Affleck play an absolute monster, because I guess that was all.
He's absolutely typecast to his own personality by all accounts.
All right, yeah, long as hell, but good movie. That's all I got. Bush, you got anything else?
Not this week. Let's go to Indian Wells. Let's get on the plane.
Let's watch some tennis. Let's get on the plane. See you in Palm Springs. All right, for producer, actually, before I do that, a reminder, we're on patreon.com/open era. Get the show ad free, get it early. Also, join us on the Discord where we're chatting tennis all the time, chatting plenty of Indian Wells, of course, on patreon.com/open era to get Discord access. We're also on twitter.com/open era pod. And that is it now for producer Dylan on the ones and twos, and for Simon. Thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next week.